Since the dawn of time, there have been whispered legends of the shades, the shadow people, and the watchers in the dark. In recent times, these entities have been connected to UFO sightings, the men in black, and allegations of abductions aboard strange craft and into other dimensions. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Mysteries with a History, where you'll be taken on a wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. And with each episode together, we will peel away the layers to look for the truth. Let me bring in my co host, Jimmy Church of Faded Black Radio. Jimmy, happy Thursday, as it is every Thursday with you. How are you?
Because you and I were talking so much before the show, I had to bring my coffee into the studio. I'm sitting there, Christina's like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, man, I'm running out, coming back, running out. I'm like, man, blah, 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 blah. How you doing?
I'm feeling attacked. Look at mushrooms.
Yeah. We were talking about
mushrooms.
We're talking about shrooms or mushrooms?
No. Cooking mushrooms, like white mushrooms and portobello mushrooms and stuff like that. Because behind the scenes, Jimmy and I are chefs. Okay, we like to cook, and I wanted some cooking advice, and he gave it to me. That mushrooms don't have any nutrients.
None, zero. She goes, let's start the conspiracy right now on this show. So Cristina goes, so what do you think about mushrooms for eating? I said, for nutrition, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. This is just a few minutes ago. She goes, well, yeah. I go, Cristina, no sunlight, no nothing. Right? There's nothing. What is in there if there's no sunlight? Right? It's a fungus that grows in the dark. Now, tasty? Can't live without them. Got to cook with them. There's so many things to do with them. But as part of nutrition for your diet, nothing. So I looked it up. They've got nothing.
but to connect it with today, they grow in darkness, and we're talking about shadow people today that are always being seen in the corners of a room when it's dark. Is it your eyes playing tricks on you, or is there something more to it? The shadow people phenomenon is just one of those really interesting things that you just cannot avoid, because it's in so many groups, categories, conversations, and people's ideas or their theories on these entities differ from person to person. And there's a few that we'll definitely be addressing today. But first, Ron, thank you so much. That is so kind of you. And I'm so glad you were able to catch the live. And I'm seeing here in the chat, there's a lot of people that are able to catch the live today, and you're all super awesome. So, Jimmy, when it comes to theories, throw us a few of these speculations on what shadow people could potentially be.
I know what they eat.
Mushrooms.
They eat mushrooms. Let's actually let's do a couple of different versions here. First off, let's go with the Oxford Dictionary definition. Okay, can we do that? Let's start with that.
Yeah.
The Oxford Dictionary, which just disappeared from what it should have been here. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. I'll come back to the Oxford Dictionary, but we have in psychology, shadow person is the perception of a shadow as a living humanoid figure. Some people see shadow people as the presence of a spirit or other entity. And in psychology, the shadow, of course, is the unconscious part of the personality that doesn't match the ego ideal. The ego resists and projects the shadow, which can lead to conflict. The shadow is also known as the ego dystonic complex, repressed id in your head, shadow aspect, or the shadow archetype. And then we have the how do I say this? The pop culture side of this, where some people will look at the shadow people as spiritual and maybe even supernatural. They have been around since recorded history, and that's the other part. They've all shadow people, and the ideas behind this have always been here. They've always been here. It's never really gone away. And the sub definitions of that, and we'll get into other aspects of shadow people later. But I have seen them. And so let me say this first. All right, let me get this out of the way, Cristina. The medical side of this, right? The normie side of this will automatically label shadow people as modern, of sleep deprivation, sleep paralysis, drug use, methamphetamines, Benadryl, all of that. It's a modern thing. It's a modern. This is it, and I look at all of that, and my experiences, which, and I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not on drugs. I don't have some psychotic disorder. I'm seeing them during the day. I'm not seeing them when I'm sleeping or sleep paralysis. So all of the things that they want to pin on this has nothing to do with me and my experiences. And if we go back into deep history and the Bible or Egypt or Mesopotamia or the Middle East or China, and you can look at all of the cultures across Europe, all of the cultures in Central and South America that have been talking about it way before Benadryl, right? Way before all of that. And so, no, it's not a modern phenomenon. And the claims about shadow people today, which completely offends me, is that it's a manifestation that happens in the dream state because you watched a movie. Well, they didn't watch a movie in 3000 BC, right? Right. It's so what? No, it's not that. And that we are sharing experiences online, and different ghost stories are being told, and then we take that and repeat it in our head and dream it at night and imagine things. I don't buy into any of that, and that's not part of my experience. And that's it. So when you think of shadow people, that's my take on it. What's yours?
I also had my own personal experience with a shadow entity in my youth, and it was terrifying. But there are some theories on what these entities might be. And also, we can't place all of our eggs in one basket. We can't say that you might have seen it once and that everything else that anyone's ever encountered is the exact same kind of entity as you encountered or experienced. For instance, there are some that believe that shadow people could potentially be time travelers. And there's this theory that these kinds of entities could be observing us from different points in the past or in the future, and that their shadowy forms could be a byproduct of their temporal instability or a way to avoid detection. Then there are theories that these entities could be interdimensional beings, to where the reason to why we're not able to see them in their full form and why they kind of only show up as a shadow with no definite features is because maybe they're kind of right in between dimensions, kind of like a ghost. We're able to see it sometimes, but not always, and you're not able to see all of everything, which then leads to another idea of it being a ghost, maybe trapped in a time loop, which is a really interesting concept that we hear from a good handful of paranormal investigators that mention that some of these ghost entities are kind of just living their same tragic moments consistently, and they're not really interacting with the new, that's in quotation marks, the new environment around them, while other ghosts might be a little bit more intellectual in the sense of they're able to manipulate objects or attempt to communicate with the living. So we also got to consider the stories, the cases of people that have been allegedly abducted by aliens. Aliens could be extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or who knows, whatever else. And they also see these shadow type beings, either in the craft, either in their bedroom, sometimes even in dreams. And so it doesn't matter what topic that you look into when it comes to the strange and the mysterious, even with near death experiences, there are a lot of cases throughout time to where people have encountered these strange, dark figures consistently.
Can I ask you a question? Can you share with us? You said you had an experience when you were younger. What did you see?
Yeah, definitely. I will. And W. Decker, thank you so much for that. It says, even shadow people know that they should hit that like button and subscribe. Have a great show. Thank you, W. Decker. And Android says, my fact of the day, I never buy those labeled white mushrooms in stores because they were creating using new genetic engineering, CRISPR, aka GMO. The more you know. Thank you for that. Thank you. Oh, and Dan, thank you as well. It says, I've noticed of late on multiple platforms, shadow people are being thrown into the skinwalker category as our most paranormal humanoid figures. Now, that is interesting. Hold on to that. Okay, because we're going to address it. So, Jimmy, to answer your question, yes, I've had an encounter. It was my senior year in high school, and I'll make the story kind of short. But what happened was I was staying at my dad's place, and I never really liked it to begin with. I just always felt like I had this kind of slight weird energy to it. And it was the witching hour, 3 a.m., and something woke me up. I had no idea what it was. Then all of a sudden, I see this dark, shadowy, tall figure enter my room. By this moment, I was encountering sleep paralysis. That was the first and last time I've ever encountered it. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I was freaking out. And also, at this time, I didn't have a huge interest in the paranormal. I didn't know that much about shadow people, and I never thought it would happen to me. And so at this point, I'm seeing this entity get closer and closer to me. I'm trying to scream and kick my legs. Nothing is working. I'm in this cold sweat. And then all of a sudden, it snaps from right in front of me, right next to my ear. I feel the temperature change near my ear, and it whispers something to me. I'm not sure what it said. I couldn't even attempt to mimic it to you. But this entity also had piercing red eyes. As soon as it whispered this whatever to me, it immediately disappeared, and then I no longer had sleep paralysis. I never slept after that moment, in the sense of I didn't sleep the rest of the night.
Wow!
And
Wow! Wow! Wow!
it was
Wow!
a experience,
Now, and thank you for sharing that with us. There's a few things that come into play here that repeat also with others' experiences. Temperature change in the room, right? You can't move. I had one experience like that too as well, and I didn't dig it. By the way, it affected me deeply for years. And although I've kind of grown up out of it, I don't have the fear that I had before. How about you? And the other part is it sounds like it went a little bit physical because it whispered, which means it wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't, it was physical enough. It wasn't a disembodied voice. It was a voice that came from the shadow.
Right. There was something a little tangible to it. And the craziest thing about that experience that I've heard consistently across people that have had things similar is that they forgot about it. I forgot about that encounter until rather recently, maybe the last year and a half, 2 years ago. And I
Mm.
thought, "Oh my gosh, I forgot I had that experience." And the thing is that why did I forget that? Was it that traumatic? And my answer would differ then compared to now, right? With all the information and the knowledge that I have today. But I thought it was rather bizarre that there was this blank for a handful of years of not recalling that encounter. But I can definitely say I wasn't any kind of substance. I didn't watch anything scary the night before. There was no reason for me to have that encounter casually. I was sleeping fine during that time frame. There was no insomnia or things like that like it is today. And it's just one of those encounters that now that I remember, it's going to be hard to forget.
And again, thank you for sharing. But what normally happens with anybody, I mean, all the time, is that experience gets put in a box and put on the shelf,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
And that's it. And until you need it. But life goes on, right? You've still got to go to school. You've still got to you've got to do all those things in life. And the next thing you know, it gets behind you. But when you need it and you recall it, you pull it back off of the shelf. And that's what you've done this time. And I think everybody should do that. Just go back and think about something that you just, it just happened. It was supernatural. It was paranormal. And in the moment you went, oh, wow, that's kind of nuts. And then you put it in that box, right? You put it on the shelf and you move on with your day. And unless you need it, you don't go back and get it. You don't go back and open up the box. So everybody should do that. Just go back and think about that strange thing and unpack it and see what's there.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And while it can be a little scary and you got to have some courage to do it, the good thing is that it can no longer haunt you. Only your memories can. But if you're able to control your emotions to those memories, it will make it a lot easier to unpack that package. So we want to hear your story, Jimmy. What happened to you with your shadow person encounter?
Well, funny enough, I told this story last night in the AMA. And somebody asked me in the AMA last night, what was the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? And I thought about it. Well, really, where I was really like, there was only one, and it happened to be my shadow person story. So, and again, I'm not going to make this long or lengthy, but in my downstairs bathroom down the hall, it's got an angled door. And so what I mean is the door isn't flat on the wall like normal doors in a hallway, right? It's like angled back. And so from the bathroom mirror, if the bathroom door is open, you can see down the hall. Okay, you follow what I'm saying? You're not looking back at the bathroom. You're looking down the hall because of the angle of the door. Okay. So door's open. I'm standing there. I'm looking in the mirror. It's at night. And at the end of the hall is a double door that's open that leads into another room. Happens to be, it's another studio. It's my music room with drums and guitars and bass amplifiers and lights and PA system. And that's what's in that room at the end of the hall. Lights are off in that room, but the doors, the double door, it's not a single door, right? It's a big wide. And so in the mirror that I'm looking in, I'm looking at the black double door that's open, right? I mean, the black room with the doors open. That's what I see in the mirror. Okay. So I'm standing there, I'm looking in the mirror, and in the room behind me, this shadow person goes, whoop, and what? And I see it. I'm looking in the mirror, and I didn't see this out of the corner of my eye or anything like that. I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I see this thing go right and move through the room. And I scream. I did. Ah! And I jumped backwards. I fell into the door and like freak out. And I run out into the hallway. I hit the hallway switch, the hall light, turn on the hall light. And now I'm walking into the studio, which is black. And I reach around the corner and I turn on and of course there was nobody in there. And I was really freaked out. I thought I was going to see some creature in there. It was like that. And now I don't know what to do with that. And like I said, this has been talked about and reported on throughout history. I'm not planting any flag or, some new phenomena, but here's the crazy part, Cristina. Wide awake after the show. It's, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. I'm cooking food, go down the hallway into the bathroom, turn on the light, and then I just see it. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Something off on the side or off no, it was literally just, I'm backwards looking at myself. It went from this side of me in that direction, from my left to my right. Yeah. Crazy. Really, just like this. Just like this. It was nuts. I'm so embarrassed about the way that I screamed and reacted and jumped. I did all of that. I left my shoes, came off the ground, screamed. It was, it was frightening. So
well, the next time it happens, you won't have that same reaction.
Well, no, I don't want it to happen again. Here I have, and let's get into this other aspect of this. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they somewhere in the middle? We have versions of, the Jinn, right? We have the Watchers. You brought up the interdimensional aspect of this. You brought up ET, and it seems that. And any one of these discussions, the Hat Man, right, the Hag Lady, all of these sound like, at least to me, through popular culture, and it doesn't matter what country you go to, whether it's Turkey, China, the United States, or Brazil, it doesn't matter. They're all describing the same thing, whether they're talking about ET, or they're talking about a ghost, a spirit, or an angel, or a fallen angel. It all seems to have the same description to it. And I find that just very compelling.
There are some very interesting characteristics that can come alongside shadow people. And it's not always the case for all of them because, again, we simply cannot place all of our eggs in one basket here, as we can be dealing with all of these possibilities, all of these theories that both Jimmy and I have mentioned just a little bit earlier. And two things I want to state. One, if you've had your own shadow person encounter, let us know in the comments in the live chat, or you can even send me an email at Cristina@strangeparadigms.com. That email is right down below because I would love to hear your encounters and experiences. When we're dealing with certain kinds of shadow people, very specifically the old hag, this one is also consistent across cultures, across time as well, where people have these really nerve-wracking encounters. And when we're dealing with the old hag in particular, and those that have encountered it more than once, is that they also encounter extreme levels of anxiety, depression, and a lot of mental, I don't know if ailments is the right word, but a lot of darkness within them and in their mind as well. And I'm going to mention very quickly here another story that was relayed to me by my mother from a very good friend of mine. And people that watch this show are very familiar with this story. But if you are new, hello, welcome. I'm going to share this one with you because what captured my interest with shadow people originally was that a very good friend of mine had encountered the old hag throughout her childhood. And it got so severe, it got so significant that she dealt with severe levels of depression, anxiety, body dysphoria, and all of these very terrible things to have a child go through up until her teen years. It got so bad that her mother ended up having to call someone to understand what her daughter was going through. And what happened is that my friend was visiting this woman, this cleanser, this witch, this whatever you want to call her. I never gave her a title because to this day I don't know what to call her. But my friend went over to this woman's house to get that cleansing. And as the story goes, is that my friend wasn't even able to enter this woman's home. Not because there was a fence, not because the door wasn't open, because it was, but it was like something was holding her back to not let her enter this cleansed woman's home. So this lady had to do the ritual right outside of the house with singing bowls, also known as Om bowls, and sage. My friend started screaming in pain. She's like, it hurts so much. If you've ever encountered a singing bowl or an Om bowl, they're meant to be very relaxing. There should be no pain when you are either playing with these, using these, or listening to these. But for my friend, she was just screaming. It got so bad, it's so painful that she passed out. She wakes up on this woman's couch. She looks at her and she's like, who are you? Where am I? Why am I here? And so then this woman explains to my friend exactly what happened, that she had this strange parasite, this strange entity attached to her. And then when my friend attempted to explain it to this woman that throughout her childhood, she encountered an entity that was very old, very dark, and also a shadow type entity, the woman said, you know what, that's probably the old hag. And she's like, what are you talking about? After hearing the story for myself, that's what got me interested in this topic, because when a loved one encounters something like this, it adds this layer of what you would classify as credibility, because why would a loved one lie to you, right? It's very different to when you hear it in a documentary or you read it in a book. It hits different when someone that you know and trust goes through something like this.
And the old hag. Okay, so let's unpack this a step further, because the old hag, when you look at the Hat Man and you look at the old hag is the female version of the Hat Man. And in psychology, in popular culture, in deep history, the same method of operation is there. So what is it that people are encountering? It's certainly not driven by what allegedly is driving the psychosis or the medications or sleep paralysis. Because look at it this way: just you have the old hag, the Hat Man. Again, for as long as written records have existed, Cristina, the Hat Man has always been there. People have described the Hat Man as a shadow person. That, you know, it's a tall silhouette of a man with that brimmed hat. And for not this isn't modern like a fedora. For modern, this goes back for thousands of years, and that this presence tends to appear when you're in bed at night, sometimes or most of the time when you're between sleep and consciousness. And today, when you look at the old hag and its description, it goes right back to your family's experience, right? It's the same description, except it's a Hat Man, or it's an old hag. And then in those circles today, go to WebMD or something. I'm not picking on WebMD. I didn't go there, but you could go to sites like that. In Psychology Today, right? Go to one of these sites and look at the analysis coming from the medical community on this, and they will immediately jump on drugs, both prescription and illegal drugs, and people that are hallucinating because of lack of sleep, and that that nobody sees, shadow cars. It's always shadow people lurking in hallways or behind you because of the paranoia that's there from the drug abuse or the lack of sleep, and that's the way that it's handled today. And then you go back to the Hat Man, or the old hag, or the Jinn, or the Watchers, and you can't say those modern influences were affecting those cultures so many thousands of years ago. You can't. It's not the same thing. So it's been repeated throughout history. If you go, I'm looking at the clock here. We're going to go deep here in a second on a few different subjects. I do have the Oxford Dictionary definition of the Jinn, which is, and this is quoted, in Arabian and Muslim mythology, an intelligent spirit of lower rank than angels, able to appear in human and animal forms and to possess humans. Although generally invisible, jinn are supposed to be composed of thin and subtle bodies and can change at will. They favor a snake form, but can also choose to appear as scorpions, lizards, or shadow people. Right? And so, and you look at this, it's like, wait a minute. You can't have it both ways here. This isn't a modern affliction, and psychosis and schizophrenia caused from hallucinations after sleep deprivation from drug use, right? I don't think that billions of people around the world for 100,000 years have been, doing these modern things.
It's when we're dealing with the Jinn, what's really interesting about them is that, and as the Straight Path says here, the Quran does detail what the Jinn are, them having their own realm, and them interacting in the human realm from time to time. And as the legends go, when it comes to the Jinn specifically, is that they can be used for dark magic and they can do your bidding for you, which is always never a good idea. But when we're dealing with some of these more modern cases, or even the Watchers that we read in different books referring to Christianity, is that the Watchers can be these types of time traveling interdimensional type entities and or fallen angels as well, take your pick. And they are just here to observe or casually interact with the Jinn. It seems like we are dealing with two different entities from these two religious books. But can we just state that these labels are the things that are confusing us, if we're dealing with the same kind of entity? That's where it gets a little tricky. But there's been a handful, if not a good chunk of people that have had encounters with shadow people, and they all describe their encounters a little bit differently. Some have this malevolent feeling towards them, some have this benevolent feeling towards them. And I think John brings up a really interesting point. I'm going to put up his comment up again if I can find it. It's right here. It says, what if a shadow person with scary red eyes appears and can't help their appearance, but has something positive to communicate to you?
Bingo. And I would say that John's obviously the smart person in the room right now, is this. I would say, for the most part, aside from looking scary, right? Aside from that the Jinn, the Watchers, the shadow people, the shadow beings are all pretty good, right? Now, I mean, have they killed anybody? Have they hurt anybody? There's that part of it. And if we look at the Watchers, and you mentioned ET and stuff, you can't the physical, like John said, the physical appearance of what's going on, they can't change that. But we have a preconceived thought pattern about what we're seeing, right? And so, okay, so it's got red eyes. I'm not saying, have dinner or something, or go out on a date or anything like that. I'm not saying that. Not at all. But when we look at the Watchers, specifically in the Bible, all right, I'm not a biblical scholar, but I can quote where I need to quote. In the Bible, in the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar, it's one of the most quoted parts of this subject that comes out of the Bible. In the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar says, hey, man, I saw a watcher myself, came out of the heavens, came down. And now, wait a minute. And he's not describing anything demonic or not even angelic. He describes it as a shadow figure, and it came down out of the heavens. In the books of Enoch 1, 2, and 3, you have 3 different descriptions of shadow people there, and the Watchers, all using these words, by the way. You have the fallen ones. You have the ones that are stuck in the 5th level of heaven, whatever that is. I don't know. And then you have the unfallen Watchers, right? And clearly defined as shadow beings in the books of Enoch 1, 2, and 3. And you have the book of Daniel. So what is different from how these shadow people, and in this case, more defined as the Watchers, how is that different than the Jinn? How is that different than the Hat Man? How is that different than the being that came to you in your bed? How is it any different? Cristina, I would say there's not much. We just don't know what the phenomena is.
No, you're right. Currently, we do not have a good grasp of what these entities are, if we're dealing with different types, if they are even the same kind of entity. And it even brings up this weird connection with alien visitations, alien abductions, and shadow people. And Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Betty Hill have a regression hypnosis where she had mentioned that she saw a shadow being in the craft that she was in?
Yeah,
had, like, red glowing eyes.
Yes. And so did I. All right. Now, you take out the eye part, but because I saw, and it's weird. It's okay. All right. I don't care anymore. I saw black, fuzzy, tall, thin beings, and they were fuzzy. They were out of focus, shadowy, right? I didn't see any clothes. I didn't see that. I just saw the shape, tall, thin, and no, not mantis beings, not Nordics in the dark, not tall grays in the day. No. They were black. They were black, and they were fuzzy. They were like out of focus. And so again, it goes right back to your ET part of this and the interdimensional part of this. It could be a time traveler element. I don't know. I can only tell you that the phenomena itself is real. And science is supporting this interdimensional part of this. Science is supporting the ET component of this. Portals and time travel and everything else. We're all seeing something and experiencing something. We just can't, right? We can't get it resolved.
That's, when we're looking at this, the part of attempting to resolve something, getting that resolution, when we're looking at these topics, doing the research on the strange and the mysterious, it's probably one of the hardest things to do, because the more you research, the more questions you have. And while that sounds very cliche, it is true. I didn't know that until doing and researching this topic. I thought, oh no, answers, they can't be that hard, right? I was wrong. And I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. And looking at these shadowy, dark entities that are consistent throughout stories, throughout time, throughout cultures, and throughout religions as well, it just demonstrates to the world that there is something to these things. And it
Yeah,
also displays to the world, Jimmy, that there is more than what the regular eye can see. There's more than your 9 to 5 job. There's more than just doing chores around the house. There's a whole world, a whole nother life happening just right beyond the veil. And that's, I think, is
yeah,
really exciting.
exactly. And like John Russell said, and you mentioned this earlier. When I saw what I saw, now I saw it. I'm telling you that everybody needs to understand. Lights are on, bathroom lights are on. I'm looking in the mirror. This thing goes and walks and moves behind me. I see it. It didn't bite me, Cristina. It didn't slap me. It didn't throw a book at me, right? It did me no harm, but yet I screamed. A blood curdling, a I jumped out of my skin, freaked out, hit all of the walls, bounced off of everything, and was frightened to death. Right? And I go, and there's nothing. Was it just waving hello? Is it showing me that life isn't what it seems? Yeah, it could be that. Could it have been something interdimensional that just came in and out of this reality just for a brief second? Had nothing to do with me, right? Nothing at all. It was just right there, right place at the right time, and I happened to be looking where it was. Could it be that? Spirit, demon, possession? I don't know. It was real. It was real. It was, and now when we back up, I'm looking at the clock here. I want to address something that I want you to share with everybody Mark Twain's shadow person experience. And the reason why I want you to share that with everybody, because Mark Twain, I don't think he had much of an education. And today he gets his lumps, and understandably so, but he was just a product of his time. But there's another component to Mark Twain. Dude was fully paranormal. He had experiences throughout his whole life. He had strange things that happened. He encountered people that told him things, but we're talking about 1850, 1860, 1870, 1880, and 1905. He had documented these crazy experiences for him. And he, as an accomplished author and a really, really great writer and everything, he wrote this stuff down and he shared it. And imagine if he had a lifetime now where he could be exposed to technology and other people's experiences. But back then, he was kind of on his own. And so what happened? What was his shadow person experience from 1870?
The things that you mentioned are correct. He had a handful of very strange things happen in his life, and he wrote very profoundly in many respects, so much so that he's actually quoted in a lot of Zen Buddhist books in the way that he viewed the world, the way that he viewed nature, and just this overall existence. And to answer your question about education, he completed the 5th grade and then he dropped out of school to become a printer's assistant. However, he continued his education by himself using public libraries, and then he eventually received an honorary doctorate of letters from Oxford University, but he never formally completed his education. I did not know that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is.
It's really great. One of the most influential right? You can put Mark Twain up there with Plato, Shakespeare. It doesn't matter, right? You can put him right up there. Voltaire. I don't care, man. You can put him up there with anybody. And didn't complete the fifth grade. And
No,
I think he was from Missouri or Mississippi or
that's yes. I
somewhere out
think
there.
Peace of Mind said it, and I want to highlight that comment that he said, but I can't find it. Anyways, he had mentioned where he's from. But if you're enjoying the show, hit that like button right down below. And now I want to tell you the story that he encountered that he actually published in the Harper's Magazine back in 1870. And it was titled The Shadow Man. And it was a rather short story of his personal encounter. So, according to Twain's account, he went to his room in a hotel one night for after a very long day of work, and as he lay in bed, he noticed a strange dark figure lurking in the corner of the room, and the figure appeared to be shaped like a man, but its features were obscured by the darkness. And Twain initially dismissed the sight as a trick of the light or his own imagination. However, as he continued to observe this figure, he became increasingly unsettled, and the shadow man remained motionless. But Twain had the eerie sensation that he was being watched intently, just like these beaming red, non-red eyes were staring at Twain, and he could feel that little sixth sense, that little hair behind the back of your neck spiking up when you feel like someone's staring at you. And despite his growing fear, Twain decided to confront the figure and demand that it identify itself. But to his surprise, the shadowman did not respond or move. Now, he was unnerved by this experience, and Twain spent a sleepless night continuously checking to see if the figure was still present. And then, when the sun came up and the morning came, he examined the corner where the shadow man had stood, but found nothing unusual. He questioned the hotel staff about the history of the room, but no one could provide any information that would explain the presence of the very mysterious figure. And that is the overall story that he wrote in the magazine back in 1870 was his personal experience. And what's really interesting about this is that he did an investigation afterward. A lot of people, including myself, after having a shadow person experience, you just hold on to that memory, but you don't continue to look forward. In this case, as soon as the sun went up, he looked at that corner because we got to remember this is 1870. There was no electricity, right? You had to have an oil lamp or maybe just a regular wax candle in order to see that night. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't have one right next to him. But then he goes and he asks the hotel staff, do you have any information on this? Which I think is a brilliant detail to the story. And no
It
one
is.
could provide him an explanation.
Yeah. And what is different from his experience and yours? Now, I had two experiences. The one that I'll make this really brief, everybody, but Christine had hers. I had that thing in the bathroom that was last year, but in 1995, I had my dude in the corner thing. And I've told this story many, 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 many times, but going back and listening to you recount Mark Twain and his experience was nearly like word for word how I described mine over the years.
Wow.
And also, okay, so mine, the window, the sliding glass doors, the blinds in front of it were open, so the moonlight was coming in. The room was, wasn't lit up, but it wasn't dark. Okay, you could see everything, and so he's over in front of the sliding glass doors, But I tried to do the same thing that Mark Twain did. Right? I was in Bruce Lee mode. Wah, 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 wah. I was gonna right? That was my plan. I was gonna karate chop him. And there was this confrontation. I don't want to get into it, but very similar to, if you use your imagination, I don't want to pollute people's minds or experiences, but very similar to what Mark Twain wrote. And so when I finally was ready to do the Bruce Lee and go all kung fu, when I turned on the light, he was gone. Yeah, he was gone. And I thought that while I had turned for that brief second, Cristina, that he ran past me and out the bedroom door. That's what I thought. So the lights were on, and I jumped out and I searched the house, and all the doors were locked and all the windows were locked. But I tell you what, I slept with the lights on and the TV for the next 10 years.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Because you know what? Also, to be fair, it's good to have a night light when you want to go to the kitchen and get a glass of water, not stub your toe on a corner or maybe any odd objects on the floor, right? I am totally all for night lights, hallway lights, ambient light. Hey, it doesn't hurt anybody. You don't have to be this manly, burly man to sleep in total darkness. It's good to have lights.
I'm manly and I'm burly with night lights.
I feel you. I have ambient lights. I have like orange ones across my room because I like it. But also, I like to see if there's anything in the corner in my bedroom.
I do the same thing. Mine are all automatic. So you turn off the lights, they turn on. You turn on the lights, they turn off. And it's like that no matter where you go in the house. I swear that room is lit up before you get to it. You turn on the light and they turn off. But yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. I feel better, and I don't want to sound like I'm scared or paranoid. It's not so much that; it's the surprise. That's the part, right? That's you don't want that. you don't want the surprise. You don't want the jump shot. You don't want the jump scene. So that's why that's there. I can look ahead and steer the ship.
And people in the chat are saying that they also sleep with night lights because you don't have to impress anyone. Like, it's totally okay. It's good to have because then you know that you're not going to hit your toe on anything. And W. Decker, thank you so much again. If you're enjoying the show, hit that like button right down below. It lets us know that you're enjoying the show, and subscribe if you haven't already. Jimmy, we have a few minutes left, and I actually have a really interesting story that I want to share.
Let's go.
It has to do with the movie, and I don't have an actual image of it. I'm just gonna put this up for now. It has to do with the movie The Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger.
No. Do we got to? That movie scares me. Okay, I thought you were going to bring up the movie The Shadow People, which was about me. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's about a nighttime radio conspiracy radio host.
Dun, dun, dun.
And his experiences with shadow people. Yeah.
Well, no, I won't.
You know what the character's name is in the movie?
Jinn?
Jaime Iglesias.
Oh, that's you. I didn't think about that.
Okay. Anyway, back to Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street.
That was some quick Spanish, Jimmy. I'm impressed. Cheers. So I'll make this also rather short because the director of The Nightmare on Elm Street, he actually formulated Freddy Krueger to be similar to the shadow people, and also to a very specific encounter, a legitimate encounter that took place in the late 1970s when the Los Angeles Times posted a series of articles about a group of Khmer refugees from Cambodia. And I know I didn't say that right, but we're going to keep going. And they
Khmer.
Thank you. But it's spelled KHMER. Like there's no
Khmer.
vowels minus the E.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Khmer Rouge. Khmer.
Thank you for correcting me. Yes. So they fled from that part in Cambodia all the way to the United States. And what they encountered was, and actually doctors had described it, and I want to pull up the exact terminology. It was classified as sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, aka SUNS, or nightmare death syndrome. And again, this is a real thing that happened. And as the articles expressed, is that these people from Cambodia would have tremendous nightmares the night before they would pass away. Doctors would go and attempt to investigate. There were autopsies on how these people died, and there was no explanation. So much so, they just had to classify it as the nightmare death syndrome. So in the United States, they're like, I don't really have an explanation for this. But in Cambodia and in their culture, they said, it is like what we would now classify as Freddy Krueger, this entity that would haunt you in your dreams so badly that you would die. So the director of Nightmare on Elm Street, when he heard this case, he's like, that is going to be my next horrible, awful horror movie from this encounter. And you know what? Not a lot of people know about it, myself included. And I thought it was something that we definitely had to mention today.
Yeah, Wes Craven, he was the director of Nightmare on Elm Street. Like everybody that's really good at what they do, I think that it usually involves dreams, the dreamscape, or remembering a dream. There's a lot of mystery behind that. And Wes Craven, I don't care if it's Pablo Picasso or Leonardo da Vinci or Beethoven or Mark Twain, right? If you can capture the imagination or your brain and what's going on in that altered state and somehow get it for people to see or read, you win, right? And that's what Wes Craven did, because we have all of the mysteries that confuse us the most. What happens after we die? We don't want to die. What's death like? Okay, well, let's throw all of that in with a scary spirit being that comes to you in your dreams. And if it kills you in your dream, then you die. It's like combining all of the things, right? And that's what Wes Craven was really good at. And that's exactly why that movie affected me so much. I have no problem when I say to people today that Nightmare on Elm Street, all of them, all the Dream Warriors, right? All of them scared me like to death. Everybody says the same thing. Me too, because it had all of those, everything all wrapped up into one. Wes Craven, who's really great. I've met him too before he passed, and really, really a nice guy, really a cool guy. But that's exactly why that the old hag or the hat man or shadow people, shadow beings, and this encounter at night or seeing a shadow figure, just like Freddy Krueger, right? In Nightmare on Elm Street, it down the street, he's a shadow that disappears behind a telephone pole. I don't need to see that. That's what scares you. Well, that's the element of shadow people that I think affects us so much. And I'm going to wrap with this, and thank you. Everything that we can tie into this, I've just watched in the first 4 seasons of The X-Files. Think about it. Think about it. It's like maybe science is tying this all together for us. Right? Parallel worlds, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, qubits, quantum computing, the multiverse, extra dimensions, entanglement. All of these things come into play when we're talking about the Watchers or Shadow People or the Jinn and Wes Craven and Nightmare on Elm Street. Cristina, another perfect show. Perfect show. I love your experiences that you shared with us today. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Who do you have on today for Fade to Black?
Brad Olson. Brad Olson, the one and only Brad Olson. And tonight we're going to be talking about the hidden esoteric in plain sight, something that he's been writing about for a couple of decades now. And so we're going to take that deep dive.
Rock on. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Another great show, as it is every single Thursday with Jimmy Church of Fade to Black Radio. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below and subscribe, as tomorrow I will be doing Strangest News of the Week, where I'll be covering all of the bizarre news and weird headlines from around the world. Sorry. Jimmy, I mean, and he's laughing in the background as he put himself on screen when he was not supposed to. But you know what? It happens. The finger slipped. I'm sorry. So, yes, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss tomorrow's show. And if you like reading articles on the strange and mysterious, scan this QR code. It'll take you either straight to my website at strangeparadigms.com or on Medium at Cristina Gomez. And you can read all of the articles of all of the shows that I do right here. And lastly, before you head out, if you need help falling asleep, relaxing, or using your imagination to wander the universe, take a look at my music channel called Cosmic Portals, and hopefully that will help you do all of those things. I made it for me originally because I have insomnia and it helps me. Hopefully it helps you as well. I will see you tomorrow. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.